Hi, hello and welcome to Simonson Farms. I'm Justin Simonson. Before I get to the rest of what the video is going to be about, let's do a quick primer, refresher, brush up on who and what Simonson Farms is. So, for those of you who haven't already guessed, Simonson Farms is a family farm, including me. Hi. And other family members of mine. We're not going to go into those details just yet. We'll do that another day. Maybe I can get somebody else to show their face here. Wouldn't that be fun? Anyway, so I and my family actually make up a corporation. How weird is that? Corporations aren't people, let alone families. I'm sure there's some people that would even argue that making your family into a corporation or vice versa is probably the best way to ruin whichever one you started with. Possible, but I know lots of families in the area that operate family farms, just the same as us, who are themselves corporations. So that's fun. Makes me laugh every time I see a bumper sticker or some yahoo out in the world screaming about how corporations aren't people, because I'm corporation, I'm people. But aside from that little tangent, we're a wheat farm where we run winter wheat, or where we run a winter wheat fallow rotation. So we have approximately half our acres in crop for winter wheat. Soft white wheat, if that makes any difference to you. We'll cover that sometime in the future. And then the other non-crop acreage lies fallow, which is a fancy way of saying that it's just dirt until it becomes cropland. So we do that in an effort to conserve moisture, but more on that later. I mean, one of the principal reasons for that is the principal reason why these drills behind me even exist in the first place. So how about that segue? So if you've been watching some other videos of mine, you already know about these drills. If not, hi, these are HC drills. They're actually an invention, a mental, or a figment of somebody's imagination from here in the area, actually. Within, 90 miles, something like that. But they were conceived way back in the 60s, so that hardly counts. What does count is that John Deere picked up the patent, sold them to a bunch of people. Now now our farm owns a set, actually two, and we're working on them here in the shop. So we're going to run around today, take a look at a couple things, because instead of things being blown apart and taken apart and just generally, becoming more pieces, we're actually reducing the number of pieces because things are going back together, which is awesome. Love that. It's a good feeling to be actually getting closer to the end point than farther away from it when you're taking stuff apart. I mean, I don't mind destroying things or taking them apart, but every once in a while it's fun to put things back together. So we'll take a look around at some of that, and I think Packer wheels is the order of the day, so let's get to that. All right, here we go. We've got Packer wheels, press wheels. Again, I'm going to be using those terms interchangeably because they're the same thing in my head. For those of you that are annoyed by that, please forgive me. These are the ones that we've taken off, but these are the ones that are getting put back together, put on. So let's have a tiny little look-see here. I think I showed in another video how these exist as pairs. They are split packers. The openers sit in between each of the packers, press wheels, what have you. And they sit in this nice, fun stack in a gang like this. There's actually still 2 more pairs to go on here, but they're not ready yet. So if we take a quick little look here, there's a lot of gray metal. I mean, the whole of them used to be this shinier color, you know, like these. I should have turned one around. Maybe I still will. But there's our drive sprocket that's going to drive a chain that will run our metering mechanism. And then over here we have bearing assembly. More on that later. And basically between each of the outer 2 spaces is going to be bearings. This very center space is going to be sprocket, and then it's going to be bearing, packer, or pair of packers, bearing, pair of packers, and the end of the shaft. So whoever designed these drills wasn't messing around. They didn't want it to go without having any way to be loaded, or the load to be borne by it. And so they have lots of bearings. That's one of the problems that we can have here. If I take a step around here, we'll actually look at what we've been doing to these wheels as I do my best impression of a bull in a china closet. But we've got a center hub reinforcement because, well, of course, the one nearest me is black, but on these yellow ones, they have this square tube that runs through them that the axle shaft, yeah, that's how they mount on the axle shaft. And right around that piece of square tubing, sometimes they'll crack out. And we don't like that because, well, this is a lot of work to get at them. And you know, if one breaks, it's the one all the way on the end, and you've got to take all 12 of these off, plus the bearings and these little spacer tubes, and it's a lot of work, and you don't want to have to do it. So we came up with these hub reinforcements. I've got a few of them that we haven't welded on, and I can show you what those look like, but it's another piece of metal welded to yet more metal. We have these caps, bands, I'm not quite sure which way to call them, but there's one seam, come down here, there's another seam, so they exist as a third, and also a third. Then this most outer part, I'm not sure what to call that either. Lots of not sures here, but this is, I'll just go ahead and call that a band because it's kind of like a band. Oh, it wraps around the outer circumference, sorry. And then on the inside here, not on this one because again I picked the lucky one, but there's a interior wear band similar to this that goes in there, and then a custom thing that a lot of people in this area do is we weld on. We've always just called these stars. It's just this little point that sticks on there. The idea is as the wheel turns, that comes and it'll grab any sort of residual crop material and pull it through the spaces between the packers, because that's where you can get some problems plugging these drills up. Speaking of those bands, yeah, we've got a whole bunch of these rings, which are what goes on here. So there's not as many as there used to be because we've already gotten into them, but there was quite a few to start in this pile. So yeah, let's go take a look at what we're doing on the welding table, which is some of this. All right, here we are at our welding table. You can tell it's our welding table because look at that mess. Good grief. I apologize. This job just takes up a lot of room. So this is another one of those Packer wheels that's been welded up. Thank goodness it's cold right now or it cooled off from being welded, because otherwise I'd be burning the dickens out of my hands. But you can see we've got that same hub reinforcement here on the inside, because that one's a real fun treat to try to get to, because with these sit together at about 2 inches apart, and if all of that cracks out, good luck. And then that's these interior flat bands. You can see real good here, that it's in thirds. Right around over here, we've got, my easy stack is gone. For the other side, the curved or beveled cap band, whatever you want to call it. And then here's our actual hub reinforcement. So those go on there, end up looking like that, but it's a pressed round piece of steel. They're a lot of fun to make. I enjoy those. We don't get to do those often enough for my liking. And then if we just turn over here, here's a few that we're still working on yet. So they don't have that reinforcement hub yet. They've got the outer band, but as you can see here, this is pretty beat up. There's one other one that we just welded up. It was much more beat up. I mean, it had cracks and stuff all around here, but this is the process that we go through or what they look like before they get processed up. I mean, there's the inner banding here isn't on this either. So you go from that up here to that. I know some people will say it's not as pretty, but this one's actually going on that Packer axle gang shaft I showed earlier, but we've got some grinding to do. It's a little bit of lost welding. That's okay. There's a couple of good finger rippers on here still. We'll get that taken care of, and we'll get her put on. Anyway, as you can see, we're getting some stuff done. Still a little bit left to do, but there's stuff that's like getting checked up on. It's in the done column. Awesome. Wish there was more of that, but whatever. It gives me something to do these videos about, and so that's really all it's about. I mean, if you're watching this, thanks. Awesome. I mean, heck, if you are watching this, that means you know how the internet works. Congratulations. Which means there's some buttons that maybe you could push, click, tap. I don't know. How do you interact with things on the internet these days? I mean, I'm pretty sure I tap with my fingers now, but you also used to click a mouse with your fingers. So you use your manual manipulators, activate whatever buttons you like. I might appreciate that, or I might not. We'll figure this out. In the future, maybe I'll be a little more insistent about that. But until that time comes, this is just fun for me. But anyway, I've showed you around the shop, at least for today. And sadly, I have to get back to work. So see you next time.